Baba Yaga was not her real name. Long ago, people used to tell stories about a witch with the same name, a person who lived in the forest and scared everyone. Now, in the future, people whispered about another Baba Yaga, but she was not a witch. She was a human, a woman with sharp eyes and a mind that could outsmart machines. Her real name was lost, but her legend grew. Many people in the galaxy were afraid of her, even though nobody had seen her real face. Some people said she could turn invisible. Others believed she could control computers just by thinking. Most people just knew that wherever she went, the powerful became afraid, and the weak found hope. Baba Yaga was on a cold, dark mining planet, far from any human city. The air was thin, and the ground was covered with gray dust. Giant machines dug into the earth, searching for rare minerals. People worked all day and night. They did not smile. The Galactic Empire owned this planet, and they did not care about comfort. Robots watched the workers. Soldiers in black armor kept everyone quiet. But trouble had started, small at first. One night a machine exploded, but nobody saw who did. Next, a group of miners escaped into the caves, and the robots' cameras were turned off for 5 minutes. The supervisors became nervous. The Empire soon sent their best hunters. They brought ships that could see through walls, robots that could track any scent, and leaders who were trained to find people like Baba Yaga. They moved quickly. Soldiers went door to door looking for anything strange. One night a group of soldiers found her. She was sitting at a table in a small, empty room eating soup from a metal bowl. Her hair was short and dark, and her eyes were calm. She did not look afraid. One soldier shouted at her to put her hands up. Baba Yaga slowly looked up and smiled. She asked if they wanted some soup. The soldier was surprised and did not know what to say. The other soldiers pointed their weapons at her. Baba Yaga kept eating as if nothing was wrong. Finally, one soldier put metal cuffs on her wrists. She stood up and said, "I hope you have better food on your ship." They took her away quickly. She did not fight. The soldiers looked at each other. They had caught the most dangerous woman in the galaxy. And she was making jokes about the food. The next day, Baba Yaga was put in a metal cell on the Empire's ship. The walls hummed quietly, and there was only one small light above her head. She was not scared. She sat down and started humming a song from old Earth, something about a bird flying in the sky. Even though she was locked away, she felt calm. The soldiers outside her cell watched her carefully. They expected her to attack, but she did nothing. She just sat there, singing softly. The ship soon reached the Empire's capital planet, which was covered in tall towers and bright lights. There were giant screens everywhere, showing the Supreme Leader's face. His name was Dominus Vex, and he ruled with a cold heart. He believed nobody could defeat him. When he heard that Baba Yaga was caught, he smiled and told his people that the most dangerous human was now his prisoner. Baba Yaga was taken from her cell and marched through the wide halls of the Imperial Palace. The floors were so shiny she could see her own face. The guards pushed her forward, but she moved slowly, looking at everything around her. Rich people in colorful clothes stopped to watch her pass. Some were afraid, but others were curious. They whispered to each other about this strange woman who had destroyed machines and escaped every trap. In the middle of the palace, there was a giant hall with high windows and gold banners. The Supreme Leader sat on a tall chair, surrounded by his advisors. He wore a dark cloak with silver patterns, and his face was pale and cold. When Baba Yaga walked into the room, she smiled and waved at the crowd. A few people gasped. Had ever smiled at the Supreme Leader like that? Dominus Vex stood up and looked down at her. He wanted to see fear in her eyes, but she only looked curious. He asked her name, but she just laughed and said, "You can call me Baba Yaga if you like. It's a funny name." The Supreme Leader frowned, told her that she was now part of his empire. He said that someone with her skills should work for him, not against him. He promised her anything she wanted if she agreed to help him. Money, power, freedom, whatever she asked. Baba Yaga looked at him for a long time and then said, "Your empire has very shiny floors, but your guards walk too loudly, people." In the hall looked at each other, confused. The Supreme Leader did not like jokes, But Baba Yaga just smiled. He promised again to give her anything if she worked for him. She asked, "Do you have any good cooks? The food on your ships is terrible." Some of the advisors tried to warn Dominus Vex that she was dangerous, but he waved them away. He believed he could break her spirit. He decided to show everyone that even the strongest human would bow to the Empire. The Supreme Leader ordered the guards to bring her to the throne room for a private meeting. He wanted to show her the true power of the Empire, to make her afraid and obedient. The guards took her away, but as she walked, she turned to the crowd and gave a small wave. One young woman in the crowd, a servant who had heard stories of Baba Yaga, smiled back. Hidden in the shadows, a small group of human prisoners watched. They saw Baba Yaga's calm face and bold smile. They felt a spark of hope. She was not afraid. Maybe they could be brave too. The story of Baba Yaga's capture spread quickly through the empire. Some people laughed at the idea that a single woman could cause so much trouble. Others were afraid that she would escape and bring disaster. But everywhere people started to wonder, could she really change the empire? Or would she become just another name lost in the darkness of the palace? As the sun set over the capital city, the guards brought Baba Yaga to the giant doors of the throne room. She stopped for a moment and looked at the sky. She thought about the stories people used to tell on old Earth. Then she smiled, ready to meet the Supreme Leader. She had a plan, and nothing in the galaxy could stop her from seeing it through. The guards walked with Baba Yaga down a long, shining hallway. The lights above were cold and white, and the walls were made of smooth stone. Everything in the palace looked strong and perfect, but Baba Yaga saw small cracks in the corners, tiny places where dust had collected. She smiled to herself, no matter how powerful the empire looked. There were always small cracks. The guards stopped in front of the biggest door in the palace. Two soldiers pressed their hands against a scanner. The doors opened with a slow, deep sound. Inside, the throne room was huge. The floor was black and shiny, and the windows were as tall as trees. Bright sunlight poured in, but it could not make the room feel warm. In the middle of the room, on a platform, stood the throne. The Supreme Leader, Dominus Vex, sat waiting. For her, he did not smile. His cloak spread over the steps like a shadow. Baba Yaga was pushed to the center of the room. There was no chair for her, so she stood quietly and looked around. On the walls, screens showed moving pictures of spaceships, burning cities, and people bowing to the Empire. Soldiers stood like statues along the wall, holding their weapons. There was a small table in front of the throne, with a cup and a plate of fruit. The room was silent. Dominus Vex leaned forward. He wanted Baba Yaga to feel small, to feel weak. He lifted one hand and the screens changed. Now they showed the faces of people who had tried to fight the Empire. Some were humans, others were different aliens. Each one ended the same way. The person disappeared or was defeated. He spoke in a deep voice, told Baba Yaga about his victories, about the worlds he had taken, about the armies he controlled. He said that nobody could stand against the Empire. For long, his voice echoed around the room. Baba Yaga watched him, but she did not look afraid. After a while, she looked away from the screens and began to study the bowl of fruit. The Supreme Leader noticed and asked if she was listening. Nodded and said, "I am listening. You have a very nice chair. I think it must be comfortable." Some of the guards looked surprised. Dominus Vex was not used to people ignoring his speeches. Tried to make her afraid. Showed her pictures of planets turned to ash, of people locked in dark cells. He promised that she would share the same fate if she did not obey him. Baba Yaga laughed. Her laughter was soft, but in the silent room, it sounded loud and strange. "You always show the same things," she said. "Screens, bright lights, big words. You want me to be scared, but I am not scared." She looked at the cup on the table and asked, "What do you drink here? On my planet, we had tea, but I don't think you have that." The Supreme Leader's face became tight. He did not like being made fun of. He stood up, his cloak moving behind him like a dark wave. He told Baba Yaga that she had two choices. The first choice was to serve the Empire. She could have anything she wanted if she worked for him. The second choice was to die, alone and forgotten, in a prison cell deep below the palace. Baba Yaga looked at him for a long time. Then she smiled. Ouch. She said, "Your offer is very interesting. I think I would like a new coat and maybe some better shoes. But I do not think I want to work for someone who only talks about fear." She pointed at the screens. "You show so many sad things. Do you ever show anything happy?" The Supreme Leader became angry. He did not like her answers. He gave a signal to the guards. Small machines floated down from the ceiling, making a humming sound. The machines were round, with blinking lights. They moved closer and closer to Baba Yaga. Their metal arms reached out for her. For a moment, Baba Yaga stood still. The guards and the leader watched closely. They wanted to see fear, but Baba Yaga just tilted her head and smiled. Then, with a quick movement, she turned her wrist. The cuffs on her hands opened and fell to the ground with a soft sound. The guards were shocked. Baba Yaga stepped back and raised her hand. She pressed a small button hidden under her sleeve. The machines made a strange noise and began to shake. One by one, their lights turned off. They dropped to the floor, quiet and harmless. For a second, everyone in the room was silent. Baba Yaga looked around and said, "Your machines need better batteries." The Supreme Leader shouted for the soldiers to attack her. The guards rushed forward, but Baba Yaga moved quickly. She grabbed the plate from the table and tossed it under their feet. Fruit rolled everywhere. Guards slipped and fell. Baba Yaga ducked behind a column and pulled a small tool from her pocket. She used it to open a hidden door in the wall. She disappeared into a dark hallway, moving fast and silent. The guards shouted and chased after her, but she was already gone. Alarms rang throughout the palace. Lights flashed red. Doors locked and unlocked by themselves. In the lower halls, people stopped what they were doing to listen. Some workers began to whisper her name. Others smiled for the first time in weeks. Baba Yaga ran down the hallway, her mind working quickly. She knew the Empire's tricks. They had planned for this. She turned corners, climbed stairs, and used old air vents to move from one part of the palace to another. She could hear guards talking on their radios, searching for her. She found a quiet place behind a row of pipes and listened. The voices were scared. The Supreme Leader was yelling at everyone. He wanted Baba Yaga found at any cost. Some of the younger guards seemed unsure. They'd never seen someone escape the machines before. In a hidden room near the kitchens, Baba Yaga stopped to catch her breath. She looked at her hands and smiled. Soft light from a small window touched her face. She was free for now, but she knew the danger was not over. The Empire would not stop. It would hunt her through every hallway, every tunnel. Back in the throne room, Dominus Vex stood in front of the screens, watching the alarms. His face was red with anger. He ordered his best hunters to search every part of the palace. He promised a reward to anyone who could catch Baba Yaga. As Baba Yaga moved quietly through the palace, she thought about the people she had seen, the workers, the prisoners, the sad faces in the crowd. She remembered the girl who had smiled. At her, she knew she could not leave these people behind. She had a bigger plan. She took a deep breath and continued moving, always one step ahead. The sound of her laughter echoed in the empty halls, making even the strongest soldiers stop and wonder. Maybe for the first time, they began to feel a little afraid too. Baba Yaga moved quietly through the dark hallways of the Empire's palace. She was careful with every step. She listened to the alarms echoing around her and the hurried voices of guards searching every corner. Each time, she heard footsteps. Coming near, she found a shadow to hide in, or a door to slip through. She did not feel afraid. In fact, she smiled because every corner of this palace seemed to have a secret. Baba Yaga was good at finding secrets in the lower levels of the palace. Far from the shiny halls and bright lights, the air was heavy and warm. The walls were old and stained. Here, workers from different planets and strange machines fixed pipes and carried heavy tools. The guards did not come here often, and the people kept their heads down, eyes focused on their work. When Baba Yaga entered this place, the workers did not look up at first. She moved between them like a shadow. She found a small storage room where she could rest for a moment. She sat on a box and listened to the quiet sound of water dripping. For a little while she closed her eyes. She thought about her next step. She had escaped the throne room, but she knew she could not leave the palace yet. she needed to do more. She remembered the sad faces of the prisoners, and she knew there were others hoping for freedom. After a few minutes, she heard a quiet voice outside the door. It was a young man, his hair messy and his clothes stained with oil. He whispered her name. Da. Baba Yaga was surprised but not worried. She stood and opened the door just a little. The young man said his name was Mason, and he had heard about her from the workers. He told her he had seen her when she was brought into the palace, and he knew she was special. Mason was a human, just like her. But he had been taken from his home years ago and forced to work as an engineer in the Empire's engine rooms. Mason spoke quickly and with hope in his eyes. He told Baba Yaga that the workers were ready to help her if she had a plan. They were tired of the Empire's rules and the never-ending work. Baba Yaga listened carefully. She knew she could trust Mason. She told him that she wanted to break the Empire's control from the inside. But she needed information. She needed to know where the power was, how to get messages to the prisoners, and how to stop the alarms. Mason agreed to help. He led her through a series of dark tunnels and showed her the old parts of the palace where the computers and machines that controlled the security systems were hidden. Along the way, Mason explained that the Empire's leaders never came down to these tunnels. Only the workers and engineers did. Baba Yaga asked him about the guards. Mason said most of the guards did not care what happened down here, as long as their own jobs were easy. Baba Yaga saw that there were many small groups of workers from different planets. Some looked like humans, others had blue or green skin, and a few had long arms or extra eyes, but everyone looked tired and afraid. Baba Yaga talked to a few of them. She spoke softly, asked their names, and listened to their worries. Some of the workers were afraid to trust her, but Mason said, "She is not like the others. She is here to help us." Slowly, a few workers nodded and began to whisper with her. With Mason's help, Baba Yaga and the workers began to make small changes. Mason taught her how to open the security panels. Baba Yaga used her skills to break into the computer systems and send fake signals to the guards. This made it look like she was in one place, when really she was somewhere else. The guards kept running in circles, searching empty rooms while Baba Yaga and Mason moved freely through the tunnels. They also began to sabotage machines in quiet ways. Sometimes a door would not open for the guards, or a camera would show the wrong hallway. Other times the lights would flicker and confuse the soldiers. Every time something went wrong, the workers smiled a little more. The guards became nervous. They shouted at the workers, but the workers just shrugged and acted innocent. The word spread quickly. Baba Yaga was not just hiding. She was fighting. Back soon, even some of the prisoners in the lower cells heard about her. They began to hope that maybe this time, things could change. Mason was able to sneak messages to them by hiding small notes in the food trays or in old pipes. The messages were simple. They said, "Don't give up. Help is here." But the Empire was not blind. The Supreme Leader grew angry as more problems appeared in the palace. He ordered his top hunter, Captain Riley, to find Baba Yaga. Captain Riley was famous for catching rebels. He was tall and cold, with eyes that never smiled. He brought with him a team of elite guards who wore dark armor and moved without making a sound. Captain Riley searched every room. He asked hard questions and watched the workers carefully. He was smart and did not believe the workers' innocent faces. He saw small signs of change wires that looked out of place, doors that were left open, machines that stopped at the wrong time. Captain Riley knew someone clever was behind all of this. Baba Yaga saw Captain Riley from a distance one afternoon. She was careful to stay hidden. Mason told her that Riley was dangerous, that he had never failed before. Baba Yaga nodded. She understood the risk, but she was not going to stop. She told Mason, the more they search, the more mistakes they will make. That night, Baba Yaga and Mason made their biggest move. They used Mason's old codes to turn off the cameras in one part of the palace. Then, they opened the doors to the prisoner cells. For the first time in many years, the prisoners saw the hallway lights turn green. A few brave men and women stepped out. Baba Yaga met them in the hallway. She smiled and told them, "You are free for now. Go quietly, hide in the tunnels." For my signal, some prisoners were afraid, but others trusted her. They followed her directions and disappeared into the shadows. The alarms rang again, but this time the guards did not know where to go. They ran in every direction, shouting and pushing each other. Captain Riley's team chased after them, but there were too many tunnels and too many shadows. Mason and Baba Yaga watched the confusion from behind a locked door. Mason whispered, "It's working. They don't know what to do." Baba Yaga smiled. "This is just the beginning. Tomorrow, we do more." At morning, everyone in the palace knew that something was different. The guards were tired and worried. The workers and prisoners felt new hope. For the first time, the empire looked a little less strong, and the people felt a little less afraid. Baba Yaga was still free, and now she had an army of shadows behind her. The legend of Baba Yaga grew even bigger, spreading far beyond the palace walls. Captain Riley walked through the palace halls, his eyes sharp and cold. He was a tall man with short brown hair and a long coat that made him look even more serious. He had a small team of special guards with him. His guards wore dark armor and carried strong weapons. They followed his orders without asking any questions. Captain Riley was known for never letting anyone escape. Now he had only one goal: catch Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga knew she could not fight Captain Riley and his team face to face. She had to use her mind. She had to be clever and fast. She did not want to hurt anyone who did not deserve it, so she used tricks. She hid in small places and used secret doors that only the old workers knew about. Sometimes she put old tools in the hallway so the guards would trip and fall. Other times she made strange noises to make them go the wrong way. At night, the palace was even scarier. The lights were dim, and the halls were quiet. Baba Yaga moved softly, her footsteps barely making a sound. She watched Captain Riley from the shadows. She listened as he spoke with his team, asking them to search every room. They checked behind every door and under every table. Still they did not find her. Mason helped by making problems with the palace computers. He was very good with machines. He made the security cameras show old pictures, so the guards thought they were watching an empty room when really Baba Yaga was walking past. He sent secret messages to the workers and prisoners, telling them where to hide and how to help. Mason was brave, but he worried about getting caught. Baba Yaga always told him to stay safe. Soon, people in the city outside the palace began to hear stories. They heard that someone was making trouble for the empire. Some believed it was a ghost. Others said it was a hero. The stories grew bigger every day. More and more people wanted to help. In the lower city, people started to paint Baba Yaga's name on walls. It became a sign of hope. Inside the palace, Baba Yaga found more friends. One was Lily, a young woman, who worked as a medic for the workers. She helped anyone who was hurt, and she knew many secrets about the tunnels under the palace. Lily was small and quiet, but she was very brave. She gave Baba Yaga bandages and food and sometimes hid her. In the medicine room, another friend was Vero. He was not human. His skin was light blue, and his eyes were large and gentle. Vero could change his shape a little, enough to fit through small spaces or look like another worker. He used his special gift to listen to the guards and find out what they were planning. Vero did not like to fight, but he wanted his people to be free. With Lily and Vero's help, Baba Yaga made more plans. She knew that the time for hiding would soon be over. She started to ask the workers and prisoners to get ready for something bigger. She told them to collect old tools, food, and water. She told them to listen for her signal. Some people were scared, but many were ready. Captain Riley was getting closer. One day, he almost caught Mason while he was fixing a broken door. Mason ran down a long hallway and hid in a dark closet. He held his breath and listened as Riley's boots came closer and closer. But then a loud alarm started in another part of the palace. Captain Riley turned and ran toward the noise. Mason waited a long time before coming out. He knew he was lucky. Baba Yaga wanted to thank the people helping her. She talked to the workers in their own languages and made them laugh. She listened to their stories and remembered their names. Many people said they had never met someone so kind and strong at the same time. Even in the middle of danger, Baba Yaga stayed calm. Her smile made people feel brave. One evening, Lily came running to Baba Yaga with bad news. Mason had been caught by the guards. He was taken to the top level of the palace, to a special prison for important prisoners. Captain Riley had planned the trap himself. Baba Yaga felt her heart grow heavy, but she did not show her sadness. She hugged Lily and said they would find a way to save Mason. That night, Baba Yaga called a secret meeting in the old tunnels. Workers, prisoners, and friends gathered quietly. Vero kept watch at the door. Baba Yaga spoke in a gentle voice. She said, "The time is coming when we must fight for our freedom. But first, we must help our friend. Mason has done so much for all of us. We cannot leave him behind." The people agreed. They trusted Baba Yaga and were ready to follow her. The next day, the palace was busy. Guards checked every room. Captain Riley was everywhere, looking for signs of trouble. Baba Yaga and her friends waited for the right moment. Lily dressed Baba Yaga in a medic's coat and gave her a bag of bandages. Vero changed his shape to look like a guard. Together, they walked calmly through the palace, past the real guards, and up the stairs to the prison level. When they reached the special prison, Baba Yaga used an old code Mason had told her about. The door opened with a soft click. Mason was sitting on the floor, tired but alive. He looked up and smiled when he saw Baba Yaga, Lily, and Vero. They hugged him quickly and whispered their plan. They gave Mason a guard's jacket so he could look like one of them. As they left the prison, an alarm started. Captain Riley had found out about the escape, shouted orders, and the guards began to run everywhere. Baba Yaga and her friends moved quickly, using every secret path and tunnel they knew. The guards chased them, but the workers and prisoners blocked doors, turned off lights, and made as much noise as possible to confuse the Empire's soldiers. All over the lower city, people saw the commotion and understood that the time for action had come. They started to push back against the Empire's guards. They threw rocks, shouted, and pulled down the Empire's flags. The sound of their anger and hope filled the air. For the first time, the people were not afraid. Baba Yaga, Mason, Lily, and Vero ran down the last hallway together. Their hearts were full of fear and hope at the same time. When they reached the tunnel entrance, Baba Yaga looked back and saw Captain Riley at the end of the hall. He was close, but not close enough. Baba Yaga smiled and waved, then disappeared into the dark. That night, the city did not sleep. Fires burned in the streets. People sang songs of freedom. The legend of Baba Yaga grew even stronger. The supreme leader and Captain Riley knew they had lost control. The people had found their courage, and nothing could stop them now. Baba Yaga and her friends hid safely in the tunnels, waiting for the dawn and the next step in their fight for freedom. The night was filled with shouts and bright lights as the people of the city fought back against the Empire's guards. Smoke rose into the sky, and the sound of breaking glass echoed through the streets. Inside the palace, alarms kept ringing. But now, nobody followed the old rules. The workers and prisoners no longer hid in the shadows. They ran through the halls and tunnels, opening doors and helping each other escape. Baba Yaga and her friends moved carefully through the hidden tunnels below the palace. Mason, still wearing a guard's jacket, guided the way with a small light. Lily followed close, carrying her medicine bag. Vero moved quietly, his shape-shifting skills helping him blend into the dark. They could hear people above them running and shouting. Sometimes they heard guards yelling, but they were also happy. Sounds, cheers, laughter, and songs. Baba Yaga felt hope growing all around them. They stopped for a moment near an old storage room. Baba Yaga turned to Mason and asked about the other prisoners. Mason explained that many were already free, thanks to the confusion and the help of brave workers. Some were still locked in the deepest cells. Baba Yaga knew she could not leave anyone behind. She told her friends, "We need to help them. If we work together, we can open every door." The group made a quick plan. Lily would bring medicine and food to any prisoners who needed help. Bear would use his special talent to look like a guard and trick the security teams. Mason and Baba Yaga would work together to open the cell doors. They moved quickly and quietly through the tunnels. Each time they found a locked cell, Mason used his tools to open it. Baba Yaga spoke softly. to the prisoners, telling them it was time to join the fight. At first, some prisoners did not believe her. They'd lived in darkness for so long that freedom seemed like a dream. Now Baba Yaga knelt down beside them, held their hands, and looked into their tired eyes. She said, "You are not alone anymore. The empire is weak. We are stronger together." Her words gave them courage, and soon more prisoners stood up and followed her. With each cell they opened, their group grew. They found strong workers, old friends, and people from many different worlds. Some were young and full of energy. Others were old but wise. Vero helped keep them safe by leading them through the safest tunnels. Lily moved among them, giving water, food, and hope. As they reached the end of the tunnel, they heard the sound of heavy boots. Captain Riley's elite guards had found one of the secret doors. The group had to move fast. Mason pointed to a metal ladder that led up to a hidden door behind the palace kitchens. Baba Yaga climbed first, then helped the others. Just as the last person reached the top, the guards broke into the tunnel below. Mason closed the door quietly, and they all held their breath as the guards searched below. Baba Yaga listened. The guards were angry and confused. One shouted, "Where did they go?" Another cursed and kicked the wall. But the secret door was hidden well, and soon the guards moved away to search somewhere else. Baba Yaga and her friends let out a quiet sigh of relief. Then they led the freed prisoners through the dark kitchen, past empty pots and pans, and out into the wide hallways. The palace was in chaos. Supreme Leader's voice echoed from speakers shouting for order, but nobody listened. The workers and prisoners cheered as Baba Yaga's group joined them. The crowd grew bigger with every step. People chanted her name and held up their hands. Even those who had never seen her before believed in her now. Suddenly, the sound of heavy footsteps filled the hallway. Captain Riley stood at the far end with a team of elite guards. He pointed at Baba Yaga and shouted, "Stop right there!" The crowd grew silent. Baba Yaga stood tall, her eyes steady. Captain Riley walked closer, his face hard and cold. Said, "You think you can break the empire with tricks? You are only one person. Surrender now, and I might let your friends live." Baba Yaga did not answer right away. She looked at the people behind her, saw their tired faces, their hope, their fear. Then she turned back to Captain Riley and shook her head. "You are wrong. I am not alone. We are all free people now. You cannot stop us." Captain Riley pulled out his weapon, ready to attack. Baba Yaga stepped forward. Out. The two of them faced each other in the middle of the hallway, surrounded by guards and prisoners. For a moment, everything was quiet. Even the alarms seemed far away. Baba Yaga remembered all the things she had learned. She knew she could not beat Riley with strength, but she could outsmart him. She smiled and said, "You like to give orders, but you do not know your own people. Look around. They do not want to follow you anymore." She pointed at some of Riley's guards who looked uncertain. "You are fighting for a leader who does not care about you." Captain Riley's eyes narrowed. He shouted at his guards to move forward, but a few hesitated. Baba Yaga spoke again, this time to everyone in the hall. "The empire is afraid. That is why they use fear. But fear cannot win forever. Today, we fight for hope." Something changed in the crowd. Some of the guards lowered their weapons. The workers and prisoners pushed forward, shouting for freedom. Captain Riley grew angry. He rushed at Baba Yaga, swinging his weapon, but she stepped aside quickly. She grabbed a loose wire from the wall and threw it under his feet. Riley tripped and fell hard. The people cheered. Baba Yaga moved fast. She picked up Riley's weapon and threw it far away. Captain Riley tried to stand, but the freed prisoners grabbed his arms and held him tight. His elite guards looked at each other, unsure what to do. Baba Yaga looked at them and said softly, "You do not have to fight us. You can help your people." One by one, the guards put down their weapons. The crowd cheered louder than ever. The people hugged each other, laughed, and cried. Baba Yaga walked through the crowd, shaking hands and sharing hope. Mason and Lily stayed close, making sure everyone was safe. The group reached the gates of the palace. Outside, the city was wild with joy. People were singing, waving flags and helping each other. The Empire's banners were pulled down, and new signs of hope took their place. The Supreme Leader watched from his tower, his face pale with anger and fear. He ordered the last of his loyal guards to protect him in the throne room. Baba Yaga turned to her friends. She said, "We are almost there. The Supreme Leader is waiting. He is afraid. This is our moment." The people nodded, ready to follow her anywhere. Together they moved through the palace gates, through the gardens, and up the steps to the main doors. The crowd behind them kept growing. The first time the palace was filled with people who were not afraid. Baba Yaga led the way, her heart full of hope, knowing that the final challenge was near and freedom was within their reach. Baba Yaga stood at the entrance of the grand palace with her friends and the people behind her. The crowd was silent for a moment. Everyone looked at the great doors, knowing that the Supreme Leader waited inside. Even though there was fear in many hearts, there was also hope, and this hope was stronger than before. She looked at Mason, Lily, and Vero. Mason nodded and gave her a small smile. Lily squeezed her hand. Vero, with his gentle eyes, gave a small bow. They were tired but ready for whatever was next. Baba Yaga took a deep breath and pushed open the doors. The crowd followed her inside, their footsteps echoing on the shining floor. The throne room was full of bright lights. The walls were decorated with gold and silver, but the air felt cold. The Supreme Leader, Dominus Vex, sat on his tall throne. In the center, surrounded by his last loyal guards. His face was pale and angry. He stared at the crowd, trying to look strong. But his hands shook a little. Baba Yaga walked forward with Mason, Lily, and Vero at her side. The crowd stopped at the edge of the room, watching in silence. Vex stood up and raised his voice, trying to sound powerful. He said that he was still the ruler, that the Empire was strong, and that everyone who fought him would be punished. His voice echoed, but it sounded empty now. The people did not believe his words anymore. Baba Yaga looked around and saw the tired faces of the guards. She could tell that many of them did not want to fight anymore. She spoke calmly, her voice clear and strong. She told Vex that his time was over. She said the people wanted peace, not fear. She spoke about freedom and how the people had chosen hope instead of fear. She reminded everyone how the Empire had hurt so many. And now it was time for a new beginning. The Supreme Leader's eyes narrowed, tried to scare Baba Yaga by showing the power of his technology. He pressed a button, and large screens on. The wall showed pictures of armies and warships. He said he could destroy anyone, anywhere in the galaxy. But this time, the people were not afraid. Baba Yaga looked at the screens and laughed softly. She said, "You cannot control people with fear forever. Forgot that we are stronger together." Mason stepped forward and started working on a small device he had built in the tunnels. He connected it to the palace's main computer. With a few quick moves, Mason sent a signal across the city and even beyond, to other planets. Suddenly, the screens changed. Instead of the Supreme Leader's armies, people everywhere saw the truth. They saw videos of workers and prisoners being hurt, of families broken apart, and of lies told by the Empire's leaders. As the pictures played, people outside the palace saw everything. In cities across the galaxy, people stopped what they were doing and watched in silence. Some cried, some shouted, and some felt hope for the first time. The lies of the Empire were broken for everyone to see. Dominus Vex tried to stop Mason. He shouted orders at his guards. But the guards looked at each other and then at the crowd. Many dropped their weapons. Some even took off their armor and joined the people. The Supreme Leader's last power was leaving him. Vex's anger turned to fear. He tried to run, but the people stood in his way. Baba Yaga walked up the steps to the throne. She looked him in the eyes and said, "You used fear to control people, but now you have no more power. The people are free." Vex tried to speak, but his voice was weak. He fell to his knees as the crowd watched. Lily stepped forward and helped an old guard to his feet. She told him that it was time to heal, not fight. Vero changed his shape to look like a regular worker and stood beside the people, showing that even those who were different could stand together. Baba Yaga turned too. The crowd and raised her hand. She told them that the fight was not just for one person, but for everyone who had ever felt afraid or alone. She said, "Remember this day. Remember that hope is stronger than fear. Take care of each other. Do not let another leader use fear against you." The people cheered. They sang songs and hugged their friends and family. All over the city, people pulled down the empire's flags and raised new banners for peace and freedom. The news traveled fast, from city to city and planet to planet. In a short time, rebellions started everywhere. The empire began to fall. Apart not because of guns or bombs, but because people had found their courage. After the palace was peaceful, Baba Yaga sat down on the steps outside. She was tired. Mason sat beside her, and Lily brought her some water. Vero stood close, watching the city below. For a while, nobody spoke. They listened to the happy sounds from the city, the laughter, the singing, and the cries of joy. Many people came to thank Baba Yaga. Some called her a hero. Others asked her to be their leader. She shook her head and said, "I am just a person. The power is with all of you now. Take care of this new freedom. Help each other. And do not forget what it feels like to be strong together." Sun started to rise. Baba Yaga stood up. She smiled at her friends. She told them she was proud of them. She said goodbye to the people who had helped her. Quietly she walked away, leaving the city behind. Some people tried to follow her, but she disappeared into the morning light, just as she had appeared. The legend of Baba Yaga grew. People told stories about her bravery, her laughter, and her kindness. In every city, her name became a symbol of hope and strength. When people felt afraid, they remembered how one person had changed everything by refusing to be scared, by laughing at fear, and by believing in others. The palace was no longer a place of darkness and control. It became a place for meetings and celebrations. The people worked together to build a new life. Mason became a leader in the new council. Lily opened a big hospital for everyone. Bro helped others learn about working together, no matter where they came from. Baba Yaga's story was told for many years. Children grew up hearing how she laughed in the face of the supreme leader and started a wave of freedom across the galaxy. She showed everyone that hope was always stronger than fear. And in the quiet moments, when people looked up at the stars, some said they could still hear her soft laugh in the night, reminding them to be brave and never give up.